Have you checked the children? You're a little mad sometimes.
Hi, I'm Chucky. Wanna play?
Sometimes that is better.
You're gonna need a bigger boat.
Hey everyone, welcome to the Horror Show. I'm Cecil Laird.
Happy 2022! I'm Jaime Fuego.
That's right, and we are here to finally discuss our top 6 horror movies from 2021. We're presenting it in January because we want to just give ourselves enough time to actually adequately take in everything that came out in 2021 between the two of us.
So much.
We work together to make sure that we don't really have overlap on our list. That way we can make sure you guys are aware of essentially the 12 best horror movies of the year. And so let's dive into that. You guys, if you haven't seen so far, we did our live version of the top 6 most anticipated of 2022. Today we're doing the best 6 of 2021, and then next up you can expect to see the bottom 6 of 2021, and then followed by the best top 6 horror TV shows from 2021. So all of these are going to be coming in in January, not long after this episode debuts, but I'm excited. We recorded the worst of already. We're here to record the best of, and
much more jovial discussion.
hopefully so. Hopefully so. Fuego, do you want to start us off?
Yeah, I can start us off. And, you know, the one thing, if we missed something that you think should have been in consideration, because despite the over 400 newly released films in 2021 that I watched, there were still, 404 as of this taping. But, dude, there were dozens of things that I didn't watch. And they were primarily stuff that was like VOD only, so we didn't get screeners, and it wasn't on like a Netflix or a Shudder or whatever. And so for that reason, there were definitely dozens of films. Anonymous Animals was one that I wanted to watch, and there were tons of others. That's just the first that comes to mind. But so if we missed something, please let us know in the comments below. But as far as my number 6 goes, it is the aforementioned Netflix, and it's called A Classic Horror Story. This is an Italian film, and it's very meta in its self-awareness and the discussion that goes down amongst these people that are on this like rideshare RV. You've got the subplot of this girl who is she's trying to get an abortion, and she has other stuff going on. But there's little subplots amongst everybody. I can't say at the end of the day they're that compelling until you really start to figure out what this film is truly about. There are some cult aspects to it, and there is also a thing that I don't want to spoil, which is what really made which is what made the movie for me, is when, even though it was relatively predictable, I saw said character and how they were going to factor into it, but that was when the movie really got going for me, and when I was very intrigued and very interested. You have references to all kinds of classic horror films from the 80s and 90s and stuff as well, hence the self-awareness. And so it's bloody and gory. It's got a very satisfying ending, great final girl, and some intrigue throughout, even if I did kind of, see it out a little bit beforehand. So a classic horror story. I'm trying to emphasize stuff that was not like big budget, I guess, in my side of the list. And so for that reason, if you haven't watched a classic horror story on Netflix,
I don't really have any big budget ones on my list either.
Yeah. Hey, so that's a nice, and you're going to get a nice variety of everything. But a classic horror story. Marcia even said, she's like, because she watched it before me, remember? And she's like, oh yeah, Jaime's gonna love a classic horror story. It's like right up his alley, and she was right. So, much love to MPH.
Yeah, I gotta say, the movies that we have to go off of for our best of, really it's not that many that are big budget movies. That's part of why I love doing these lists at the end of the year, because you and I dive a little bit deeper than the general audience does, and we're able to come back and say, hey, these are really the best horror movies of 2021. Give them a try if you have not. Looking at my list now, 4 of the 6 are foreign features.
Awesome.
It's crazy, and well deserved. I can't wait to talk about them all. But I'm going to start with my number 6, which is PG, Psycho Gore Man.
In contention for mine as well. Canadian film.
Film. Oh, technically foreign.
Yeah.
So 5 of my 6 are foreign then. But yeah, Psycho Gore Man is such a beautiful send-up of the 80s and even early 90s. I mean, if you were a fan of Power Rangers, if you were a fan of the Guyver specifically. If
they
you
made
were
a few of those.
Yeah,
didn't they?
if you were a fan of good old 80s monster movies and mix it with a little soupçon of Steven Spielberg-esque kid stories,
With the kid
right?
aspect, for sure.
Yeah, if you put that together, then you get Psycho Gore Man. It is just such a nostalgic throwback that is done so well, where it's about a couple of kids, specifically a little girl, who manages to find and get control of an ancient battle entity called Psycho Gore. Well, that she calls Psycho Gore Man.
Yep, because they come up with their own name.
Yeah.
PG.
PG, Psycho Gore Man. And he is basically someone that's dealt with all kinds of death throughout space.
Intergalactic
craziness, exactly. And he has now come to Earth, and he has no choice but to do what this little girl and her friends say. And that
And her
is
brother, too.
her brother, right? Yeah, her brother, yeah. And that's the crux of the story without spoiling too much for you guys. It is just so well done. And then there's a complete side plot of other alien creatures looking to track down Psycho Gore Man. And it has some straight up wonderful throwback practical effects that permeate throughout the entire movie.
That fight in the woods, man.
Oh man, it's just so much
fun.
good stuff. If you like horror and you like good old fashioned practical effects, Psycho Gore Man is such a wonderful throwback. A lot of people didn't like it because of the little girl lead.
Whatever.
I loved it
She's
because of
written
her.
as such,
I thought
you
she
know.
was hilarious and fun. She was annoying to a lot of people, but I disagree. I think she played the role very, very well, and I loved this movie.
Agreed. Yeah, I did too. And if not for a little bit of God damn it.
Uh-oh, here we go.
If not for a little bit of pivoting here and there and whatnot, I would have definitely had this in my top 6.
All
Easily
right.
top 10 for me.
So that's going to lead to your number 5, or do you want me to go number 5? Will you take care of some hiccupies?
I don't know. I really don't. I guess March.
It's just meant to happen.
Yeah, on the most wonderful day of all. All right. Well, I will do my best to maintain. So number 5 is a film called Saint Maud, and this is not of the particularly horrific sort of variety. Oh goodness, yeah,
It's all right. Forgive
it's
him,
not.
guys.
It's not going to go away, guys. But yeah, it was an A24 release that was delayed, like over and over and over throughout the midst of the pandemic. It was eventually exclusively on Epix, which is where I checked it out initially. And this is one where it's. Do you feel so much for this lead character, man? I mean, my heart just breaks for her, and the fact that she comes on to the estate of this dying, very wealthy woman, and she has a past that you don't really start to figure out until about midway through the movie, about the fact that she was hardcore into like drugs and substances and craziness, and she's found the Lord, man.
Man.
And so that's the biggest thing, and she tries to almost indoctrinate this woman who has hired her, who is dying of it's cancer, if I remember correctly. But I think one of the biggest things is about halfway through when our Saint Maud runs into a former friend of hers. That's when the layers are starting to unravel, and she goes out and gets a little crazy, and you see just kind of a slight little snapshot of what she used to be before this major conversion.
Okay.
And without spoiling the end of the film is where it really hits its
That's where I hear the impact.
cathartic pinpoint. Holy shit, dude. It really, really nails it. And it's a lot to endure a slow burn of this regard, just for that proverbial payoff, I guess. But as a whole, this movie affected me significantly, and since I've experienced a little bit of like religious fanaticism myself over the years, that's definitely got me.
That's what actually steered me away from the film. I mean, I heard that it's got that emotional punch at the end, and then I even asked you, I was like, look, should I really try and focus on getting this watched by the end of the year? And you're like, there's very little of it that's actually horror, but it still made your list. So I do want to watch it, but
It's why it's
man,
lower
some of
on
that
my
stuff
list.
it's a tough sit for me. Like Midnight Mass was a beautiful mixture of horror and religion that I really dug. I don't know
Significantly
that
superior to
Saint
Midnight-
Maud would
Midnight
be the
Mass.
same sort of thing.
Yeah.
So I'm going to jump into my number 5 then.
Please do.
That's going to be the horror comedy Werewolves Within. So this was one that was created by some people that have done fun stuff in the past.
Mm-hmm.
I can't remember. I think this was based on a video game, if I'm not mistaken.
I believe it was.
And it starred, a really funny comedic actor. I don't know his name off the top of my head, but also the woman that's in all of the AT&T ads. Yeah. And she
surprised me, man.
Yeah, she surprised me too. Did you watch this? Oh, so you did catch it. Okay, cool.
I watched this.
So this was just a really good horror comedy, and I was worried that it would be kind of like semi-spoilers, a Wolf of Snow Hollow situation.
Vastly different.
But it ended up being a much more satisfying conclusion to the story, but it was kind of like a werewolfy Knives Out. You know what I mean? Where it's a group of people who done it. They don't know who's the werewolf.
It's also kind of a bunker movie.
Right. They're all stuck in this one little area trying to realize. So deaths start to happen in this really small town in the snowy region of the U.S. And, people start to get picked off and people start to talk about that it's a werewolf, and then people don't know who the werewolf is. So at one point it gets to this giant house where everyone's been forced to sort of gather together, and it's a whodunit. Who is the werewolf amongst us, and what's the motivations? And it's just a really fun, funny horror movie. We haven't gotten a lot of movies like this that do it as well as Werewolves Within did it. So that's why I had to include it on my list. Werewolves Within, if you like horror comedies, you like werewolf movies, you like just fun character, studies, watch Werewolves Within. I think you'll be happy.
Yeah, it was the dialogue and the banter, most notably between our AT&T girl and the new black sheriff guy, who is very funny. And they're kind of like maybe romance, maybe it won't be.
They won't be sort of situation.
Yeah, exactly. He's all hung up on this woman who was treated him relatively badly.
That's right. It starts off with the voicemail.
To be fair about it. But yeah, the banter was funny. I don't know. I just always love these like snow-covered, comedic, kind of crazy situations, and all the supporting characters, and like the finger pointing and everything that's going on, and they're all trying to figure out who the murderous one may potentially be. I thought it was good.
Cool.
Very good. Very enjoyable.
So that leads to your number 4, right?
Let's see how I hold up. Let's see how I hold up trying to discuss it. But
you can do it.
So this is a Shudder exclusive, at least currently.
Okay.
Called The Boy Behind the Door, and so this is about.
Yeah, this was one that was on my list that I just never got to this year.
Oh, it's
I'm
chilling.
disappointed I didn't. Yeah.
It's like chilling in its scariness and the fact that there's nothing supernatural going on. It's these two best friends, this black and this white kid, and they are essentially kidnapped in this like remote, more like I'm trying to remember if it's in the South, in like Georgia or something, but whatever. Anyway, they are both kidnapped and presumably going to be used for horrible sexual and eventually murderous purposes by these people. And most notably, a woman, the actress who plays the villain in this, she is incredibly effective, and the nastiness is this, like, I guess matriarchal sort of thing. It's not like an extended family or anything, but the black kid gets free, and then it's essentially about him going back and trying to rescue his friend.
Okay.
And dude, it's intense. It's so intense. These young actors, and just the sorrow, the sadness, the crying, like everything. It's so incredibly effective within this movie. In the heroic virtue. God damn it! It's not getting any better. The heroic virtuousness of our lead is so incredibly effective. This young actor who was trying to rescue his friend. It just affected me emotionally in a way that I've always said on this show that when there is real world like hideous nastiness at times, even though I don't gravitate myself towards it, I like monsters and stuff otherworldly and everything. But in this regard, this film creeped me out because I know there's people out here that are doing this sort of horrible shit. So, The Boy Behind the Door, Shudder, exclusive. Check it out.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
That's going to lead to my number 4, which I think was also released on Shudder, if I'm not mistaken. This is a German film called Blood Red Sky. So this is
Netflix
movie.
For Blood
Oh,
Red Sky.
right, not Shudder. Okay, Netflix. But this was a German vampire film that was so surprising to me because
wanna
it
make
dropped
sure
on
it's
Netflix just randomly, and it was about a mother and a son that had to make a long journey via a plane, and there is shenanigans that go on.
It is German. We're fine.
And she is sick when she gets on the plane, and don't terrorists take over the plane? Right?
This is one that I did not get the chance to
Oh,
check
okay,
out.
yeah. So if I'm
Despite
not
the fact that
mistaken,
being a big fighter
it's
fan
been a
and
while, but I believe terrorists take over the plane, and she gets, well, anyway, I'm not going to explain too much because it will spoil, but let's just say that she's protecting a secret when she gets on the plane as a part of her cargo, as a part of her luggage, so to speak, that wasn't checked necessarily. And there is a vampire that's set loose on this plane, and the vampire is trying to take out the bad guys, and while they're obviously trying to execute their plan, and this mother and son are caught in the middle of it. Again, I'm being very cagey because a lot can be spoiled in this film.
Yeah,
but
and it's a younger son from what I've
but
seen,
it's
so.
just such a well-crafted vampire movie. It is such a well-crafted, isolated story, right? It's that sort of thing
Once
where
again,
it's
kind of bunkery.
all right,
I
a little
liked
bit
it.
of a bunker, but it's not. It's it is and it
I know,
isn't.
I'm just teasing.
But you're right. You're not far off.
I mean, when you're in an enclosed...
Right, an enclosed
trap,
space for basically
sort of.
the entire movie, but there's lots of different areas. It's not just like one room. There's lots of different areas on the plane that they're able to get into, and it doesn't feel like necessarily as much of a bunker movie.
a
But
little more fluid.
yeah, the fact that there is essentially a vampire on the loose starting to take out the bad guys, and the story of the mother and son involved is really, really engaging and entertaining, and gory where it needs to be, surprising where it needs to be, and heartfelt as fuck by the end of the movie.
Oh, I
So
like that.
Blood Red Sky is, I don't know, some people didn't like it, but I saw a lot of people when it first came out glowing about it, and I was one of those people.
Okay, well, it's definitely one that I need to check out, obviously.
Definitely, as a vampire fan, 100%.
Big
It's
time
up there,
vampire
to
fan.
me, it's up there with like 30 Days of Night,
Oh, wow.
and a couple of other really, really just fun, entertaining vampire movies with a plot that just hasn't been done yet.
Yeah, and that's the biggest thing with vampires or zombies or werewolves or
We've seen
whatever
this
is
so
having
much.
you have to have like that fresh sort
That
of
hook.
take on it. Yeah, exactly.
So you're number 3, Fuego.
Oh, my number 3.
Number 3!
So it's back to Shudder.
Okay.
Although when I initially watched it, it was not on there yet. I actually rented this on VOD. This is called My Heart Won't Beat Unless You
Tell it to.
Tell It To. I was thinking Ask It To, but yeah, My Heart Won't Beat Unless You Tell It To. So I'm a big fan of Patrick Fugit, man, and all the way back to Almost Famous, obviously, but even Outcast.
Oh, Outcast, yeah.
thought it was
So you're
terrific
talking about
as
the
he-
lead from Almost
The
Famous, yeah.
lead from Almost Famous, yeah. And so this is one where him and his sister are essentially in kind of a more remote, cold area. I'm trying to remember if they're like Wyoming or the Dakotas or Montana or whatever, but inconsequential. They're essentially caring for a youngest sibling who is a vampire. And they are trying to keep him from going out, getting crazy, and so what Fugit's character has to go out and do is, like, he picks up homeless people and then kills them. And then they, bleed them out and feed their younger brother, and the power struggle that starts to happen, especially between the sister and, Patrick Fugit's character, is so fascinating and yet kind of frightening, because you can tell that even though she's not the one going out initially killing, she's almost more ruthless. God, this shit just doesn't want to relent, and it's not going to.
We're getting there.
As I keep talking. But so Patrick Fugit's character is having a major crisis of conscience, and he feels really bad about what they're doing, and he wants to kind of reel back and stop, and he just doesn't know how they can continue to help this youngest sibling, and the youngest sibling is not in a ferocious or scary sort of manner. He's very childlike.
Okay.
So it's got a little bit of a Let the Right One In vibe in that regard, even though he is a lot older than both of the kids in either of those films. But it's about do you let someone go when they're that afflicted and when they have a terminal disease, essentially. There's a lot going on in this movie, but it's very very sad, very slow burn. It is gory when it decides to be. One moment, one moment in particular. I'm just thinking about this like Mexican worker guy that he picks up. But I'm not trying to spoil stuff super. But yeah, it's much more of the dramatic variety. So keep that in mind. Don't expect like slow, or excuse me, excessive like gore fest or anything. But it's just very fulfilling from a storytelling and from a character standpoint with terrific performances from all three of our main leads. So,
Fair enough.
Yeah,
Fair enough.
Really good.
So that leads to my number 3, which is a Shudder movie, a Shudder release, which was called Super Deep. Or in other countries, it was called The Super Deep.
I'm your Super Deep.
So this movie was a big surprise for me, actually. It just dropped on Shudder one day. I don't even remember doing a trailer reaction for it. I don't think that we did. And I was just seeing that people were like, oh, this is great. And I was like, all right, let's give it a try. And it really blew me away with how awesome it was for a low-budget horror movie. It's from Russia, right? And it's about a woman who is trying to escape this complex from deep down low, I'm mixing it up with Death Valley now. Jesus Christ, they're very similar.
Yep.
But it's a group of scientists that try and investigate what's gone wrong in this underground facility. And when they go down, there's this female who is the lead, who's trying to figure out what's going on, but she's starting to see weird sort of growths, and it also gets into the cordyceps thing that Gaia from this past year also got into.
Also the spore,
this sort of spore virusy thing where it causes death, it causes mutation, and it causes, by the end, a really awesome big creature moment. And this movie is kind of the best thing of low budget horror that it can bring. It's a little bit The Void, it's a little bit The Thing, it's a little bit Doom. Like it's a little bit of a lot of things, and it does it all really well, and it all meshes together really well, and it's even got a punch in the gut ending where you're like, oh no, it just was a big surprise. And having watched Super Deep and Gaia really close to each other, they have very similar sort of viral things that they have to do, but Gaia was a much clearer, close ripoff of the Last of Us video game, whereas Super Deep was taking the cordyceps virus and building a whole new story around it. And I loved Super Deep. I loved the creature effects.
Same.
Tense as hell towards the end in the third act.
The third act was great.
I loved this movie. It surprised the hell out of me. So if you guys haven't watched Super Deep on Shudder yet, it is a wonderful creature movie.
Yeah, take the time. I loved it too. And, a nice double feature. This and
this and Gaia are really both really good
I
movies.
think would be a good.
Sputnik as well. You're right.
Yeah,
that was from last year, right? Didn't we talk about that? Yeah. You know what? You're right. Do Sputnik
both being
and
Russian
Super
movies.
Deep. Both really
Russian
that's
creature
a
movies.
wonderful
Yeah,
dual
that's a
feature.
good-
That is a wonderful Russian dual feature. Sputnik followed by Super Deep. Great movies, and Super Deep, a real surprise.
Yeah, I
to
like
make my
the
number
female
3.
lead especially. Yeah, I thought she was a badass, man. Yeah.
So that makes your number 2 then next for you.
Yes, so number 2. Well, unfortunately, in this particular instance, you are, and this is a film I just watched last night.
And now I'm bummed I didn't watch it.
Yeah. So I watched it late last night too.
That's all right.
But so this is one
This
where
was your 2 to 4 a.m. movie?
yeah, it actually was.
Okay,
Yeah.
all right, fair enough.
Yeah, but I was so amused.
That's when I was watching Scream 4.
Yeah, that's when
preparing for Scream 5.
I was so amused and enthralled by this film. So it has a couple different names because it is it's either a Swedish or a Norwegian movie, and I want to properly give it credit.
Okay.
But it's called The Trip on Netflix at least. Okay. And so Noomi Rapace, if I'm properly pronouncing her name, but I
also from Lamb, right?
Also from Lamb, yeah. So she was active this year, man.
Yep.
But goodness Lord, it's just not.
It's all right.
Jesus Christ, it's not going away.
God's having his fun with you this time.
Yeah, everybody's gonna laugh their asses off about me. But okay, IMDb proper title because this was released long before in North America. So Y Onde d'Ayer, I think it's like Bad Day or something like that. Anyway, so you have this couple, and this is horror, but it's more like horror thriller with like extensive amounts of black comedy
Okay.
within it. And so you have this couple, and it's Numi and her hubby, who is a television director of Swedish like soap operas. And
Did you say the title? I don't know if you said the title. Okay, sorry.
The Trip. Yes.
If you said the title, I apologize, but I don't.
Oh, it's all
think you
good.
did.
It's all good. So the husband, who looks almost like a Swedish doppelganger, Norwegian doppelganger, Bill Burr, which is what's really funny. So him and Numi, who is insufferable in the fact that she's an actress, but she's not having a lot of success. She's cheating on dude.
Oh God.
Pink, sunglasses, and just being bitchy and all the time. But you can tell they're in this loveless marriage, and they're both creatives in that particular regard. Actress and director. And so he's like, yeah, let's go on holiday and go out to my father's cabin that's right out by this beautiful water area and this lake and everything. And he's planning to kill her, as you find out very early in the movie, but yet she kind of gets wind of it, and so she's like, oh, well, I'll kill you before you kill me. And so it's like the rising to the surface of all of the strife and anger, but it's done from a very just nasty comedic sort of variety. But then there's other people and things that come into play, and it gets gory, it gets crazy, and goddamn, some of the dialogue was so unbelievably amusing to me in this particular film. And I mean, the Bill Burr character, the husband, Lars, as his name is, so his father, when he visits him in a resting home earlier in the film, he's like, you're a wimp, son, you should have been in a war. That's what made you man and toughen you up and everything. And later in the movie, there is a moment where Lars rises to the violent occasion, and the father is like, I'm so proud of you, son. And it's just, I don't know, small little goopy bits like that, goopy and goofy, and very gory. It's from the Dead Snow director, Dead Snow 1 and Dead Snow 2. So when we do get the gore, don't wait for it, like right off the bat. But this Netflix film was fun as fuck, and yeah, that's why it jumped into the list last minute. So
Okay.
Yeah.
So that leads to my number 2, which is going to be a South Korean film released on Netflix called The Medium, or Shudder. This was Shudder as well, right?
Yeah.
So Shudder, this was called The Medium.
heavy contention for me too.
Yeah, this was a just really well done possession movie. It's been such a long time since we've had like a really excellent possession movie. I think maybe The Exorcism of Emily Rose might have been the last one that was really excellent.
I thought The Old Ways was pretty good, which was also on Netflix. It was a Mexican one. Yeah, it came out last year.
No, I don't think I saw that one.
It was in moderate contention for me,
But The Medium was excellent, and it was told via a documentary crew, which I loved. I'm a big found footage guy, and this is probably the best found footage movie to come out in a long, long time.
I would concur.
It was so well done. You go and you are following the tale of this young Korean girl that is not acting the way that she should, and her family is essentially the town shaman for the area, and she's lined up to be the next one. Doesn't necessarily want to be, but she gets embroiled in supernatural affairs that really start to affect her. And it honestly, to me, took the Exorcism of Emily Rose scary possession scenes and really focused on that sort of thing. It took out all the court, right? Because it wasn't about a court story, but it was about the family, and the mother of this girl that gets possessed is kind of in denial because she was actually in line to be the shaman, but ignored her duty, and so her sister was forced to take over, and now her daughter is embroiled in it all. And it just was a really fascinating story that was told in a really scary, ominous way, and it was also found footage. Like, it just really blew me away in a number of different facets.
Yeah, I don't typically like the found footage faux documentaries, sort of approach and stuff, but this one really affected me significantly. And yes, it's slow burn, which may be a little much for a few people here and there, but it, especially when you start to see the revelation in the third act as opposed to what is really going on in the spread, without spoiling stuff. Like, this movie goes for broke, dude. It really does. It gets nuts in the third act, and I mean, everything leading up to it was great. and the personal aspect of the fact that they did go with a found footage sort of, approach and situation, and also the heart-wrenching aspect for one particular character without spoiling stuff, as opposed to if they were chosen, if the duty was theirs, if they were actually picked, so to speak. Like, that stuff hits hard at the end of the film.
Yep.
And definitely check this one out. Would have been on my list, but we were trying to kind of divvy out.
Yep.
So
that leads to your number one, right?
Does indeed lead to my number one. And this is one where I have to at least bring up very, very briefly, if I can.
You all right?
I'm still hiccuping, which sucks, but I just want to make sure that I mention the name of the guy who did pretty much everything for this film.
Okay.
His name is Jordan Graham.
Oh, yeah, okay.
Yeah, and this is more just an exercise in the amazingness of just crafting something over a number of years yourself and finally having it see the light of day. It's called Sator. And so this guy did everything. He wrote, he directed, he produced, he scored the music and did all the sound design and everything. I mean, he was the DP. It's a very small and very slow burning, brooding sort of film, but it legit scared the shit out of me in the fact that few films ever have in quite a while. Just the spread amongst the family, the fact that there is so much mystery about everything that is transpiring.
Is it found footage too?
Kind of
is, right?
I mean, at least in the handheld that you see, and a lot of it, you've got the two brothers early in the film, and the fact that one has been kind of living off the grid, and then you have the rest of the family, and you have an aging family member and everything. But it was really just the obsession with this sort of cult craziness and almost old ones sort of approach, in the fact that there's demons in this forest, demons or otherworldly creatures of craziness or whatever. And all of those recordings, those are what really probably affected me the most. It was the mother or the grandmother who really was hit hard with the obsession, and reading these texts and then recording it, and then the discovery and the transference of the craziness at times. And so, man, Sator it almost inspired me too. I was talking with a friend from the Hail to Stephen King Facebook group about that. He's up in the Northwest, and he was like, I watched Sator, man, and I was like, I can get $10,000 together and make my own horror movie. And so creepy, inspiring, minimalistic, but yet incredibly effective is what I would kind of contend at the end of the day. Sator is definitely the horror film that left the biggest mark on me this past year. Watched it 3 times.
So I did see it. I watched it once, and I thought it was good, but it didn't land with me the way I was really hoping it would land. So I'm glad it landed with you that way.
Oh, it really did. Yeah.
But that leads to my number one, which was a French horror film. And this is one that I will say, a couple of years ago, I had a movie on my list called I'll Take Your Dead. And part of why I had that on the list was the very end of the movie, where something happened and I had to literally stay in the seat as the credits rolled, because I was so emotionally overwhelmed and taxed. Like, if I had stood up, I just would have cried 30 years worth of tears. You know what I mean?
I was going to say, CF and Chad were proud at that reaction, I would imagine. Shout out to those guys.
And well deserved. So this is a movie that, the reason I bring that up is because this very much had an ending that was very similar to me. Meander. This is a movie about, so this is almost like a combination of I'll Take Your Dead and Saw, or I'll Take Your Dead and Cube. You know what I mean? Okay. It's about a woman that wakes up.
Now I remember what it is.
Yeah, it's about a woman that wakes up in this tiny little room and is forced into these tubes to try and escape her dire situation that she has no idea why she's been kidnapped, why she's been put into this maze of tubes where every new tube is a death trap. There are tubes where the bottom gives way, and there's like boiling lava, essentially underneath her.
And then there's other people trapped in there.
There's other tubes. There's tubes that have, fire blasts, that you can barely escape from. There's, other people trapped in the tubes, and she's just trying to make her way out. And by the end of the movie, there's stuff revealed that is so personal to her as a character that elevated the movie to me personally so much, where I found myself like crying in this horror movie because of the emotional weight that was hoisted upon me in the third act of this film that really made the entire journey so much more worth it than I thought it was going to be. Like, you're watching a movie like this and you're like, what is the ending going to be? How are they going to stick the landing to make it feel truly, earned and something I want to share with other people? Because, a lot of independent horror movies are really great, but they don't necessarily stick the landing. Yeah. This one stuck the landing in a way where I was floored, I was impacted, and I was like, this is so good. And I don't even think we got around to actually reviewing it more than a review roundup situation.
We did a roundup for it, yeah.
But I absolutely loved Meander. I thought it was the best overall horror movie of the entire year.
Yeah, I loved it too. Definite contention. I mean, this and Super Deep and a few others were ones where I was like, oh man, that could easily be in my list. But we wanted to
highlight
spread the love, so
exactly.
To speak. Yeah, but this one was damn good, man. Much more so on the sci-fi side of horror, so to speak. But man, the ending just affected me significantly, and the connections and family aspect, I guess, without really dancing around and trying not to spoil.
Yeah, no, so, 100%.
Yeah, incredibly just personal and hit me in those proverbial feels.
So as you guys can see from the list that we put together, I don't think there was one single big budget release that we put on our list this year.
Sorry, Halloween Kills.
No Halloween Kills, no anything
Resident
else.
Evil,
Resident Evil,
Ghostbusters.
So Ghostbusters just wasn't horror enough, but
the one that
I still wouldn't have beaten any of the ones I mentioned.
The one in hindsight, as we're double checking right now, I probably
we do have some alternate options.
Antlers probably would have made my list.
I
thought it was going to be on your list.
The Vigil was an alternate because we both really like that. That was about a man who sits. What does he sit? What is the term where he sits? Shiva? Is it Shiva? Is it? Anyway, it's Shiva? A Jewish man that sits over to watch a recently deceased body. Yeah. And as he does so, supernatural things starts to happen. It was excellent. It was the beginning of the year. I also had the Tomorrow War on my alternates list because even though it wasn't strictly horror,
alternates list for worst, dude.
Oh no, I enjoyed it. I just love the creatures that much. Yeah. I love the creatures so much that I was willing to put it on my alternates list. Not my best of. Boys from County Hell, I think, was an excellent vampire movie that didn't get enough attention. Another Shudder one. And then finally, the one I mentioned during the worst of, which you guys will see later, is I think Slacks was surprisingly entertaining.
Double X.
So yeah, SLAXX was silly, stupid, but it was really genuinely fun. Not Shaun of the Dead level horror comedy, but certainly
this is more comedy than horror.
Scary Movie level horror comedy. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and I really enjoyed the explanation at the end as to
the reason why it's alive.
How these bands are even doing their shit.
Did you have any alternates you want to mention?
I'm surprised neither of us went with Army of the Dead.
I was tempted. A lot of people hated on that movie.
Oh, I love that movie.
I enjoyed the hell out of it.
I think maybe Army of Thieves
lessened
my enjoyment of Army of the Dead, if that even makes
any sense. A lot of people liked
sense.
Army of Thieves way better than Army of the Dead, and I don't understand how. Yeah, I did like Army of the Dead as well,
Yeah, and then I also really liked the latest Wrong Turn.
I thought it was okay.
I thought it was good, Matthew.
I thought it had some cool deaths, but the story didn't surprise me. The story didn't.
Yeah, well, that's why it was at the back half of my honorables.
So that's going to do it for our best of 2021 as far as horror goes. Why don't you guys let us know in the comments down below what your thoughts are. We're going to do a separate list talking about the best horror TV shows of 2021 because Lord knows there was 30 or more shows this year that came out that we have to choose from. Yeah. So that's going to be coming as well. Stay tuned. Next episode you'll see will likely be the top 10 worst horror movies of 2021, and then followed by the TV shows. And if you missed it, we did a live top 6 most anticipated horror movies of 2022. That we are about to go live to do that, but as you guys watch this, it will already be up on the channel. So thank you guys so much for watching. Let us know if you agree or disagree with us at any point along the way. If we missed any movies, shout them out in the comments down below. Greatly appreciate you guys watching to this point. If you enjoyed the video, click the like button and subscribe. Ding that notification bell. Set it to all if you want to make sure you don't miss other episodes going forward. But until next time, I've been Cecil Laird.
And gracias, Jaime Fuego.
And remember, stay scared.